Oral peptides for fat loss. No needles, no injections, 12.4% of body weight gone. Well, what if I told you the same class of molecule that's been quietly revolutionizing metabolic medicine in injectable form just made the leap to oral delivery? In that landmark phase 3 clinical trial published in the New England Journal of Medicine in September of 2025, patients lost an average of 12.4% of their body weight without a single injection. Now, I'm Regan Archibald. I'm the founder of Ageless Future, the world leader in longevity medicine. And today we're going to be talking about GLP-1 receptor agonist, specifically orforglipron, and why this might be the most significant metabolic shift that we've ever seen in medicine, not because of the weight loss, but because what's actually happening inside your brain. And for those of you who are skeptical about these oral peptides working, we're going to disassemble this notion. If it's oral, it's not going to work, because there's actually been a solution to this. Because this injection barrier, now we've worked with over 70,000 people over 22 years, and I can tell you it's real. People do not want to inject themselves. I just spoke at a big event in Iowa, and actually we got stuck in a tornado, so I had to do a lot of it virtually. But the big issue that these practice owners are having is just getting their patients over this injection barrier. And it stops millions of people from getting help, because here's the problem. For years, people have known that GLP-1 therapy works. The clinical outcomes are extraordinary. I think this is the biggest medical breakthrough of our lifetime, especially once retatrutide comes on the market. But these weekly subcutaneous injections, it can create a psychological and practical barrier that stops millions of people from ever getting started. So every day we see in our practice people who would genuinely benefit from GLP-1 support, they hesitate because they have needle anxiety. There's costs, there's supply chain issues. There's also what happened with some of the big pharmaceutical companies where they found literal hairs inside of Ozempic. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Now, as you look at what's going on from an oral perspective, this could help a lot of people enter into what I think is that big first step when it comes to changing your metabolic issue. Because here's what we've done. In the United States, we're more likely to die of obesity than we are of starvation. You have access to food 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, if you don't think there's an issue, travel to another country. My wife and I, we just got back from Japan, and I could not believe the difference in body composition. Japan, they have roughly 4% of their total population is overweight. You contrast that with the United States, and it's more like 50 to 60% of people are obese or overweight. And this is not necessarily our fault. It's the fault of the way we process foods. Now, if you ever fly over Nebraska, you fly over Iowa, you see farmlands everywhere. And these farmlands, they're heavily fertilized and they're heavily laden with glyphosate or some kind of chemical to block the weeds. And this has caused this food that is genetically engineered, and it's harder for our bodies to digest. And not only is it harder for us to digest, but then when the food manufacturers get a hold of it, there's little emulsifiers that get in there. It makes it more addictive. It changes the texture of the food. And then we want to eat more of that food. So we have this high density of caloric intake, but very low nutritional value. And it's created chronic insulin resistance. And this drives inflammation. And this inflammation, it accelerates biological aging. So every year that you delay this metabolic correction is a year of cellular damage, and you may age 4 or 5 years because of that. Now, this isn't a vanity issue, it's an issue in longevity. Now, the way that you want to start is you want to get the right labs ordered. So for those of you who want to take a deeper dive, go to agelessfuture.com, set up your free intro call, and talk to one of my specialists at the office and get your labs ran no matter where you are. We have licenses in all 50 states. We also do not use research use only peptides. We only use peptides that are compounded by a 503A licensed pharmacy, and we can ship them right to your house once we figure out what your body needs. And if you think about this, when you're running your labs, you want to narrow those parameters because a lot of doctors are going to tell you your blood sugar looks great. All they ran is glucose and hemoglobin A1C. You want to go deeper than that. Look at your insulin fasting. Look at your C-peptide. Look at your LDH. These are all really critical markers. We're going to look at your liver function, your kidney function, all the hormones in your body, and we're going to look at one of the most important markers that's missed on most tests, which is homocysteine. How inflamed is your brain? How inflamed is your body? We'll look at C-reactive protein. We're also going to look at this marker called anion gap to see the stress in your nervous system. You might be shocked. So let's talk about these molecular molecules. Like, how do they work? How do these clinical trials actually show that a pill could have the same impact as an injection? Because most of these peptides, let's face it, they're fragile little amino acids or small chains of proteins that are stuck together. And when compounded properly, now this is not like research use only, they're not a finished product. These are products that are made to be injected into rats. So you may get some endotoxins that get built up in your body. We're seeing more and more side effects. So that's why we only use a 503A pharmacy. But even the 503A, like to produce and compound these peptides, it takes a very skilled pharmacist. But what the science is actually showing us on some of these oral versions, like specifically the ATTAIN-1 trial, it was phase 3 published in the New England Journal of Medicine. They enrolled 3,127 participants and watched them over 72 weeks. And at the highest dose of orforglipron, patients lost an average of 12.4% of their total body weight. More striking, 59.6% of participants lost nearly 10% or more. Now, this is nearly 6 of 10 people hit double-digit weight loss with an oral pill. Now, if you compare that to like retatrutide or maybe even tirzepatide, you may be kind of rolling your eyes and saying, that's not much, Regan. But if you're somebody who is actually fit, you take your health seriously and you follow a dietary recommendations, you have a fitness routine, you could actually far exceed this, what I think is still pretty meaningful result. So it's not a one-off. They repeated it, and this was actually oral semaglutide in the Oasis 4 trial, and they found that there was a 13.6 mean weight loss over 64 weeks. 2 separate compounds, both GLP-1s, both oral, both delivering outcomes that rival what we previously thought required injectable therapy. Here's what I think is important to understand that most people completely miss. GLP-1 receptors are not just in your gut. They're not just for weight loss. They're actually found in your brain, this region called the arcuate nucleus of the hypothalamus, the same area that governs hunger signaling, reward behavior, and energy homeostasis. When oral GLP-1 agonists activate these receptors, they're not just slowing gastric emptying so you feel full, they're resetting that neurometabolic thermostat that's been stuck in the wrong position for many of us for decades. This is not a hunger drug. This is a neurometabolic reset. It's the democratization of metabolic medicine. Oral delivery removes the injection barrier. And so it does that with this same mechanism of action that transforms outcomes in clinical settings. So imagine if you overdo this same pathway, if it's a reward center, guess what can happen? Well, this eudaimonic perspective where you just feel this sense of lack of motivation. Now, if you've been on tirzepatide, semaglutide, even retatrutide, if you got your hands on that, if you overdose it, you may feel this lack of motivation for life. That's a big problem. So this is where you want to talk to professionals, people who understand physiology from a holistic perspective. So here's the thing, chronic insulin resistance, if we can get rid of your insulin resistance, that's the first step in a longevity program because they are the primary drivers of inflammation. It's that slow, smoldering systemic inflammation that accelerates cellular senescence and degrades your biological age faster than almost any other metabolic factor. When we correct your metabolic environment, you bring down that fasting insulin, ideally below 5, and then you're going to reduce the visceral adiposity or that visceral fat. You're going to quiet the inflammation, and you're going to start looking and feeling and performing much better than you ever imagined. So for those of you who are ready to go deeper in your health, I appreciate you being on this channel. All you need to do is go to agelessfuture.com. My team can help you get the right testing done. And these 4 metabolic markers are going to be the first thing they review with you: your glucose, your fasting insulin, your hemoglobin A1C, your C-peptide. They'll also show you how much inflammation you're dealing with. We've ran over 10,000 of these labs in just the last 6 months. Can't wait to hear how you do. And if you want to learn even more about do oral peptides actually work, then go to my next video, Do Oral Peptides Work? I'll see you there.